What is up, YouTube? I am Reactor of All, and I'm reacting to the news about Demarcus Cousins that he has a warrant. There's a warrant for his arrest for a misdemeanor domestic violence charge. Now, with this domestic violence charge, is related to, more specifically, it's called third-degree harassing because of an argument that he had with his ex-girlfriend. Now, what happened was, he was engaged to somebody else, was going to get married, and he asked his ex-girlfriend if their son, the ex-girlfriend and Demarcus Cousins, if their son can attend the wedding of Demarcus Cousins with the new wife. And she said no. The ex-girlfriend said no. And this is according to Washington Post. This is according to what was heard in TMZ, and according to other sources. Now, looking at all this, I can't really comment on the legality of the situation. What I can comment on is Demarcus Cousins. The one reason why I feel bad for Demarcus Cousins. Okay, so first, before I can do anything else, we need to talk about the context of the situation. When you look at his injury history, for example, and I'm going to go somewhere with this, guys. Just hear me out. So, a couple years ago, he was, dominant in his prime, considered to be the top 1 to 3 center, either number 1, number 2, number 3. But personally, I considered him number 1 because of how dominant he was. And when he was in the Pelicans, in January 2018, he had a torn left Achilles. Now, after this Achilles injury, he was offered a 2-year, $40 million contract, which he refused because he thought he was worth more, and without an injury, he would be worth more. But with the injury, nobody wanted to give him any more than 2 years, $40 million. And that's how he ended up on the Golden State Warriors for $1 million, I want to say $6.8 million, something around. It was a mid-level exception. So, that whole year from January 2018 to to the time of the playoffs, to the Golden State Warriors, the playoffs, he missed the season. He wasn't playing. He was trying to recover from the injury and things of that nature. And within a week after he started playing, 2 or 3 games later in the playoffs against the Clippers, he got a quad injury. And he missed the rest of the playoffs. The Warriors don't win the championship because of that injury, among other significant injuries, such as Klay Thompson's ACL tear, and Kevin Durant's own Achilles tear. With this, I felt like a crazy loss of opportunity, because we're talking about a guy that could have easily made hundreds of millions of dollars, compared to only having the potential after the Achilles injury of having 2 years, $40 million, and now having a minimum contract and then being arrested with the arrest warrant. Now, and all of these things, all of these situations, it's like a loss of control. Like he could not control getting injured. He worked really hard, and he couldn't control you can't control fate. You can't control being injured. You can only be so healthy, etc., etc. And now the way that he tried to resolve that was when he joined the Lakers this past offseason. He lost 25 pounds. He was ready to go. He was healthy. He didn't have a quad injury. He didn't have his past injuries were recovered. And then during practice, he tears his ACL. That sucks. That's messed up, And so, and then shortly after, there's the whole marriage, the idea of him marrying, his fiance and stuff. And, his ex-girlfriend refuses refuses Demarcus Cousins from seeing his son on what's supposed to be the happiest day of his life. And, you know, when I look at all this stuff, I can't comment on all of the words that have been said. I can't comment on all of the arguments that he and his ex-girlfriend has had throughout history, throughout their history together. But I don't see what is so unreasonable about Demarcus Cousins asking his son for his son for the wedding. Now, if he was some deadbeat dad, if he was someone who didn't want to be a part of his son's life, that's one thing. But based on his actions, it doesn't seem like he wants that. He wants to be a part of his son's life. He doesn't want isolation from his son. He's asking for his son. So, so his reaction, what I see is that it came from a very vulnerable place. You got injury, you got career-changing injury after career-changing injury after career-changing injury. 3 big injuries. You're getting married to someone who makes you happy. It's supposed to be the happiest day of your life, and then all of a sudden, your ex-girlfriend, says, "No, I don't want my son to be a part of your wedding." It's his son too, and so I don't condone what the specific phrase that he said. If you want, you can go to the Washington Post to know more. You just search Demarcus Cousins, and it'll be right there. But you got to understand that, there are a lot of psychological things that are going on with Demarcus Cousins. I'm not saying he's crazy. I'm not saying he's, bipolar. I'm not saying he has a disorder or anything like that. I'm just saying, when you have hardships, when you have, pain after pain after pain, and you do something and it knocks you out again. You do something about that, and then something else knocks you out. There's a lot of emotion that goes with that. There's a lot of desperation that goes with that, especially when someone like Demarcus Cousins could have had hundreds of millions of dollars, people, versus what is his contract now? Like $2 million, $3 million? It's like a minimum contract. And he could have had a shot with the ring on 2 different contracts. You had the mid-level exception with the Warriors, that was $6.9 million. He could have gotten a ring. He didn't even win a ring. Maybe with the Lakers with him, they would have, had a shot at the title. But he's injured again, and we don't know what's going to happen with the Lakers as a result of that. So, the one reason, in conclusion, the one reason why I feel sad for Demarcus Cousins is that day after day after day, it's like pouring salt in the wound. You got this pain, you got this physical pain, you got this, these people criticizing him in the past for technical fouls and things of that nature. You got people saying, oh, I don't like him, he doesn't like me, whatever. You got people talking about, oh, he's done. Oh, after this injury, oh, he's not the same player anymore. And as a consequence of his injuries, he's not making the money he probably deserves. And then on top of all of that, his son can't even attend the wedding? Now, what he said was wrong. The specific words that he used was wrong. But I can empathize with the emotions that he felt. Because, man, you're trying to have the best day of your life. You're trying to have the best day of your life after having devastating injuries all over the place. And you got your ex-girlfriend, trying to have her controlling it too. I don't know if Cousins has a history of domestic violence. Not for sure. There's a lot of he said, she said right now. But one thing that I will say is that, I have a question. How did TMZ get involved in the first place? This is something that should have been discussed among police, among the Lakers, Demarcus Cousins, and the ex-girlfriend. How did TMZ get involved into this? That makes me a little suspicious as to what the motivations are of the girlfriend. Now, If her motivation is simply to protect her child because, Demarcus Cousins has done something in the past, or because Demarcus Cousins has threatened something else in the past, that's different. That's different. Then it's all Demarcus Cousins' fault. Then he should get in trouble, But if we're talking about somebody who is losing this, is losing that, is losing the other thing, and he says one line that comes from just the emotion of his ex-girlfriend refusing his son to see him on what's supposed to be a very important day, that's problematic for me. That's hard for me to completely accept. If he has a history of these things, then he should be in trouble. Then he should be, be having these arrest warrants. He should be having these misdemeanors. But from the beginning, we had TMZ involved, and they aren't, as reputable as I would like. But for them to be there from the beginning, I question the motivations. I question the motivations of this story, of how it came out and all that. So, and we're talking about a player who, if he lasted 6 more months, literally 6 more months without an injury, we'd be talking about him as a Hall of Famer. We'd be talking about him as a, someone who has a $100 million contract. We'd be talking about, if anything, John Wall. John Wall has a very large contract, and he has a devastating injury, and it's hard to move him. But at the end of the day, he still has that contract. Demarcus Cousins got injured earlier to the point where he couldn't have that contract. The best he could get was 2 years, $40 million. It's messed up. It's messed up. The situation is messed up. There isn't really a winner in all this. And I feel really bad for Demarcus Cousins. For all that. People don't really look into the context of the situation enough, especially when it comes to something like this. We talk about, mental health is, mental health is all the rage, but how seriously do we consider mental health? We have, I think last year we had Kevin Love and we had DeMar DeRozan talking about depression and all that stuff, but how seriously do we take, mental health? You got Demarcus Cousins being criticized night and day. You got Cousins being criticized for injuries that he cannot control. You got Demarcus Cousins being criticized for, the contracts that he can't get. And he gets criticized for having an emotion. He gets criticized for having an emotion when it comes to seeing his son. Now, part of that is legitimate. Don't get me wrong. When you're at a vulnerable place, it's hard to not have the urge to scream. It's hard to not have the urge to throw something. It's hard not to have the urge to go to a bar, get a drink. You know what I'm saying? But what happened in this situation was it was it wasn't a drop in the bucket. It was the drop that overflowed the bucket, if you will. We're talking about a very dominant player. We're talking about someone, when healthy, he couldn't be stopped. Maybe if Joel Embiid was fully healthy, maybe the Joker was fully healthy, maybe they would have something to say about it. Or sorry, if he was fully healthy against the Joker, fully healthy against Joel Embiid, maybe, he could do something about that. Maybe something could be said about that. But because of injury, we're never going to really find that out, or until he gets his health back, and until this gets resolved, this misdemeanor gets resolved, we're never really going to know that, and that's disheartening. That's disheartening. It's a lot to chew on. I am Reactor of All. If you guys have questions, comments, if you guys have other things you want me to react to, I react to literally everything. I reacted to Spider-Man. Not being a part of Sony and Marvel. I had my own take on it, and it turned out to be pretty good, pretty close to what ended up happening. I feel like my insights, it may not be entirely correct. It may be controversial at times. But as long as you guys, actually listen, actually give a chance, you recognize the points that I'm making, I feel like you'll see a lot of value in it. Please like and subscribe. Click the subscribe button. It's right next to my username. Right next to my username by the description. And please click that bell so you can have more notifications about future videos I make. It won't necessarily be just about basketball. It can be about anime. It could be about something in the entertainment industry, some other sport. Could be cooking. Could be literally anything. Could be a reaction video to something funny. Me reacting to something funny. But again, I can't emphasize this enough. I am sad that every time we hear about Demarcus Cousins, there's some level of bad news that most of them he couldn't control. And this was the one that he perhaps could have or should have controlled, but for whatever reason he didn't. And this kind of alludes to mental health because, you have these injuries back and forth, all these criticisms back and forth, and you have no money, like you don't have the money that you see players that are lesser than you that they're making more money than you just because of health. Not because of skill, not because of drive or whatever. Again, please react. Make comments, like, and subscribe. They really help the channel out. I'm an up-and-comer, so let me know what you guys think. Peace.